It's been a lot of fun watching the transition. It seems like it's happened suddenly with the allowing stuff, but it's been a lot of fun watching the transition of the message and how it's kind of molding to our listening and we're feeding back, and that's been great. And even if I wasn't getting anything out of it, just the feedback between non-physical and physical has been a blast. So thanks for that.
Well, it's been great fun watching you all, because as we say to you that you are deliberate creator, you all get very deliberate and more resistant. And as we say to you that your work is to allow the well-being that is natural to you, while many of you have a hard time believing that well-being is natural to you, it is a better process. It's more hands-on for you. Yes, we agree.
So what I've been puzzling about in listening to the weekly tapes is it's very interesting to me to hear and see how certain issues mean so much to certain people. I can't get a speeding ticket driving 100 miles an hour in a red sports car for 5 years. Just can't seem to manage it. And when periodically I'll just think, this is a nice day. I think I'm just going to set the cruise control for 55 and relax and drive. There's highway patrolmen all over the place, giving other people tickets. So that's not a thing. I've got a dog who I think he should just leave, and he doesn't want to die. I work around sick and dying people all the time, and I can't remember the last time I had a decent cold. So it's interesting to me to hear people talking about health and other things, but then when we talk about money, that connects for me. Not that, and I have,
So you're saying that it seems that different people, through their different associations in life, have developed different patterns of resistance relative to different things.
Right.
And you easily allow things that a lot of people don't allow, and your resistance is more about money than about these other things?
Right. So in puzzling about that, I interestingly made a connection with a friend from high school who I had not talked to for 25 years, actually after reading her father's obituary, writing her an email and saying, gee, I saw that your father passed away, I've seen a lot of people die, and I realized that they kind of do it at their right time, and I hope it felt like that for you. And she emailed me back and said, oh, sure, yeah, I know that. And so we've kind of hooked up and started talking, and there's a lot of, we've come over the years to a lot of similar understandings of the way things work, but it seems a difference, although that's my main question here is, her perspective is that, and this seems true to me, that the things that make certain issues your issues do have to do with your childhood. I mean, we've talked about this in the past, and
we don't disagree with that.
Yeah,
because a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking, and it doesn't matter when you started thinking it. And the stronger beliefs, you've been thinking longer, usually.
Right. Right.
Yes.
So I would say, what I've come to be able to do is to recognize when I'm having negative emotions and kind of look at it and change the way I'm feeling.
Yes.
What she's saying was, well, why don't you go deeper, further back, and just work through the thing so that you don't have to quite so frequently do that.
Once you have in your now made a decision that you're going to pay attention to the way you feel, and each time it comes up, you deliberately choose a different response to it, it does not keep coming up. In other words, her belief is that unless you get back and really dig it out, that you haven't taken care of it and it will keep coming back. It's a little bit like, as you stand in your now, which is what we encourage you to do, because this is where all of your power is. It doesn't matter what has ever come before, because where you stand is at the culmination of a whole lot of desires which you right now are letting in or not. So as you're reaching for thoughts that feel good or better, you're letting them in more. As you find thoughts, no matter when they started, that don't feel so good, you're not letting them in. Now, many believe that by going back and discovering the root of the thought and then convincing myself that it did not have a solid beginning, therefore it's been invalid the whole time I've been thinking about it, that somehow that makes it better. But what we've noticed with most is that they get stuck upon why it was invalid, and then they get uncomfortable about who the person was that taught it to them, and then they're uncomfortable about how long they've had it, and then they begin beating up on themselves about something so silly hindering them for so many years. It's a little bit like saying, today I've decided that I'm going to be very tidy, so I'm going to make my bed every day, and then saying, but before I can start doing that, I have to go back and make all those beds that I didn't make. And we say, just make your bed. Just make your bed. Just start today. And what we want you to do is just recognize your powerful emotional guidance system right now is saying to you, you've got a whole host of desires that source energy is answering, and you can tell by the way you feel what you are doing about it in your powerful now, you see. And we have to say that while we agree that there are many processes that produce results for many people, for the most part, going back and rehashing that stuff, they become lifelong partners, the psychotherapist and the patient. It just goes on and on and on in most cases.
Yeah.
It's built on a physical philosophy that many believe that doesn't work. What the philosophy is if I will endure this struggle and pain right now for just a little while longer, it will lead me into a better feeling place. And we say it defies law of attraction. He's saying, if I can just suffer through this process, it doesn't feel good to me, but there's reward for me if I suffer through it. In every moment that you're suffering through anything, you're holding yourself apart from the receiving. And the progress that so many make is the same progress that somebody feels who beats themselves over the head with a hammer, and when they stop, it does feel better. A friend was talking recently about going through a labyrinth, and she was talking about how she went into the labyrinth, and you know how the labyrinth is confusing, and made her way to the center, and then made her way out and felt better when she got out. So here you stand in a not too good feeling place, and then you go get really, really lost and confused and frustrated and aggravated and further removed from who you really are. And then when you come back out, you're not even in as good a place as you were when you went in, but you feel so much better than you did when you were lost in there that you say, progress.
Right. So I think a related idea, I mean, until recently, I kind of felt like I was just kind of distracting myself, that I was just kind of, I don't feel good, quickly move to something else I think about, but I left my vibration in the same place as where it had been. Somehow now that doesn't seem to be the case. For example, in the car area, I used to be really kind of, I'd be upset if something happened to my car, someone opened their door into it or something like that. And while I was driving back from the airport with her, we hit a tire, a shredded up piece of a truck tire that slammed in the front of the car, ripped out part of the spoiler, whipped around into the side door, and I just got out and I thought, well, we'll get that fixed. And it wasn't like I had tricked myself into anything. The gradual process of focusing on the feeling that felt better, the thought that felt better, made that not accessible to me anymore. It just wasn't, the notion of
good,
damn, just wasn't there anymore.
Well, what happens is, so here you are in a restaurant, maybe with friends, and the food that comes to you does not please you in some way, or the service doesn't please you. Something is uncomfortable about it. And so you think, well, I'm the creator of my experience, and I will get into a very allowing mood. And so you think about happy things, you talk to your friend about things that matter, you get out your pen and you do a focus wheel right there on the placemat. You do everything that you can, but service doesn't improve and the food doesn't get any better. And you think all that positive thought was a waste of energy. It got me nowhere. And what we pointedly want to say to you is that as you are having your lunch today, you are actually pre-paving your lunches for September.
Right.
That will help a lot of you. As you are in your now, as Jerry and Esther were having lunch yesterday, Jerry made a comment about something, and Esther said, well, there go your September lunches. and they laughed about it, and then they went a little further, and then Esther said something, and Jerry said, there go your September lunches. And they had fun in recognizing that there's just no point in using this now moment as the excuse to pinch myself off from anything that will have any ramifications ever. In other words, why not just be joyful now?
Right, I mean, segment intending was fun, but it seems somehow too distracting to be thinking every moment, I'm doing this, I want that to happen, I want this to happen, I want that to happen. It's kind of cumbersome almost now. I don't know, it just feels that way.
What segment intending does is gives you a focused opportunity to identify what you want from the feeling place of expectation. So, as you say, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to have a glorious time. While your time has already been pre-paved by you, by previous experiences, what it's doing, it's alerting you to the way you feel, it's alerting you to the vibration that you're offering, it's helping you to make the correlation between what you're thinking and feeling and what you're getting. So that what begins to happen, let's say you're in a moment where something isn't right, like the tire hitting your car, and you feeling the sting of that. In other words, no one wants their spoiler spoiled, and might want to call it something else.
Yeah.
So as you're having that experience in that moment, and then you say, but how do I really feel about my life, which is more or less what you did. I'm all right with this. In other words, you put it in perspective. This is insignificant in relationship to who I really am and how life really goes for me and how I really feel. Now, this incident does not have further ramifications because you've brought it into alignment.
Well, it's even, I mean, that's a funny one, too, because the spoiler was kind of like hacked up. It needed to be replaced. It's going to be replaced. So in some ways, the whole thing is just like a nice way for me to get the parts of the car that weren't right, in my mind, all fixed and replaced.
Which brings you back around to the question, did you forget what the question was? Is that a request that you'd put out there before?
Right, yeah. Instead of just saying, I'm just going to, spend the money to get it repaired.
And what did you tell us earlier was your issue?
Money. Oh, yeah. No, I know, that's right. No, that's funny.
And so through the crack of least resistance, the universe yielded to you what you want.
Right. In some ways, I just wish I would just have a whole ton of money and just get everything fixed I want. I feel kind of like I'm taking two circuitous routes getting to where I want to go.
We have a better one for you in terms of releasing circuitous routes, and that is when you accept that you're asking and the universe is answering, then you can leave money out of the equation altogether too, because that idea of money is hindering, because all of the beliefs that you learned in childhood about money may still be vibrating in there somewhere, and so it really is easier in your now to just release the idea of that and let the universe yield to you. You may find it's easier to go back and rework all of your issues with money. Or you may find that it's easier to just stand in your now and accept that the universe yields and begin counting the ways that you've noticed that it is yielding, and rather than saying, yes, universe, I see that you are yielding to me in this way, but wouldn't it be better if you did it in this way?
Yeah.
And the universe would say back to you, we are yielding to you in any possible way that you will allow. There is no little hole that we do not dive through in readiness to help you to receive anything that you are wanting.
Right.
Any possible opening we dive through the crack of least resistance or the crack of most allowance. The holes, how small or big they are up to you.
Wonderful.
You
Thank you. I think this is related, but is there any difference between feels good now and feel good long term? In other words, it seems to me like there's some behaviors. Somehow we don't get into sex very much here, which surprises me. But it seems to me like I have friends who get into relationships and immediately get sexually involved, which feels good. I mean, it just feels great. But then they find they've kind of developed almost a bond that's not real, or that's when is it real and that something else just messes it up, or are there ways that you
we think what's happening there, the sexual bond or the sexual desire is a very big one. It's innate within you. In other words, you were born with this powerful desire to continue to evolve. That sexual desire is right up there with the desire for water or the desire for food. It's a very inherent desire within. So we think that what happens sometimes is that the individual has an incomplete awareness of what they are wanting or allowing. And by that we mean the sexual desire is a very strong one, something that they think about a lot, something that they like, so something that they do let in. But often they are not considering the other things that they desire as well, and so they let the sexual in before they've even identified. It's sort of like finding out that the house doesn't have enough closets after you've moved into the house, you see. And so...
But it does feel good. In other words, in the moment it does feel good, so shouldn't that be something that they should do, even though it seems in the end, I guess?
Well, let us put it to you this way. If someone is having a sexual relationship with another, and they are singularly focused upon how good the sex is, so that they are not offering resistance then through this relationship, all of the things that they've ever said that they want could be allowed. But they usually don't do that. They usually focus on how good the sex is while the sex is happening, and then they focus upon how burned the eggs are when the eggs are burned, or how unmade the bed is, or how unpleasant the conversation is, or what's wrong with your family. In other words, they focus upon all the other aspects. And so if there are a lot of aspects that are focal points that cause resistance, then the relationship is not a stable relationship.